Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear students, I hope you're staying safe at home. May Almighty Allah continues to protect us all. So inshallah, we shall start the 2019-2020 session. And I'm bringing to you business studies for Js1 for the term. So we shall look at the scheme of work. And at the same time, we shall start the first week topic. So I hope you have your writing materials ready, and I promise it's going to be an experience you will really love. It's going to be a very interesting one. So let's start by looking at the scheme of work for the session. For the first 5 weeks, we shall be looking at the various forms of business organization. For first week, we'll treat sole proprietorship. The second week, partnership. Third week, cooperative society. For the fourth week, limited liability company. For the fifth week, public enterprise. For the sixth week, we shall be looking at, then for the sixth week, we shall pick another topic. We shall be looking at consumer market and society. For seventh week, we look at the need for monitoring and controlling chemicals. For eighth and ninth week, we look at bookkeeping. We shall be introduced to bookkeeping. So for the 8th week, we'll look at the meaning and essential qualities of bookkeeping, source documents, types of source documents. And for 9th week, we'll be looking at special journals. All right, that is how the scheme of work is going to be. So we shall start the first week topic right now by looking at the various forms of business organization. Before we left school, we treated entrepreneurship, and you were briefly introduced to business organization, and that's exactly where we are going to start from. So we shall briefly look at the meaning of business organization before we start today's topic, which is forms of business organization. So let's define business organization. I'm sure you still remember. A business organization is a venture or an enterprise established to carry out legal activities for the provision of goods and services and to make profits. Let me take it again. A business organization is an establishment or a venture that carries out legal activities for the provision of goods and services and to make profits. Okay, so with that, we shall move to the various forms of business organizations. There are so many forms of business organization, and they are the sole proprietorship, the partnership, the cooperative society, the limited liability companies, the private and the public corporations. So we shall look at all of these forms, starting from sole proprietorship. They'll pick others too, one after the other. We pick them one after the other, rather. Okay, so let's look at the sole proprietorship business. The sole proprietorship business is also known as the sole trader or a one-man business. You can call it a one-man business, you can call it a sole trader, you can call it a sole proprietorship business. It is the oldest form of business organization. Yes, it's been in existence since exchange of goods and services began among people. So let's define a sole proprietorship business. A sole proprietorship business is any business unit which is owned and managed by only one person. Please emphasize that, by only one person. Any business, enterprise, or organization that is owned by only one person is a sole proprietorship business. Please underline that, one person. All right? So we shall look at various examples of sole proprietorship business around us. There are so many. The hawker, those people that put their goods in trays and pans, put them on their heads and move from street to street to sell their goods. Those are the people we refer to as hawkers. That's a very good example of a sole proprietorship business. Those kiosks around us in the streets, along the roadside, are also sole proprietorship business. You know what I mean by kiosk? Those small shops owned by abokis where they sell sweet, sugar, and the rest in small units, in units, is also an example of a sole proprietorship business. The petty traders alongside the road, in our streets, in the marketplace, are sole proprietors because those businesses are usually owned by just one person. The shoemakers, the sewing mistresses, the tailors, the carpenters that you see around you in your locality are also sole proprietors because those businesses are usually owned by one person, irrespective of the number of people that work in that organization. You know, in the organization, they could have workers, people that the owner of the business pays salaries to. They could have an, uh, apprentices, those people that are learning the trade from the owners of the business. So irrespective of the number of people that you see in the business or that you see or that you find in the organization, so far the organization is owned by just one person, then it is a one-man business. Most times, the one-man business is run by only one person. They may not have workers, but sometimes they may have workers, they may have apprentices, people learning the trade. So whichever case it is, so far the business is owned by just one person, then it is a one-man business or a sole proprietorship business. So the next thing we are going to look at is the features of a sole proprietorship business. What are the features of a sole proprietorship business? One, it is owned, financed, and run by one person. I have emphasized that in the definition. Two, the sole proprietor provides the capital and bears the business risk alone. Yes, I told you that irrespective of the number of people you find in the organization or in the shop, the sole proprietor is the only one that provides the capital and bears the risk of the business. Whatever happens to the business, it is only the sole proprietor that takes care of it, that faces the consequences, that clears the mess. So, three, the sole proprietorship business is not a legal entity. That is, it is not separate from its owner. What do I mean by this? When a business is being referred to as not being a legal entity, it means that such businesses are not seen as an entity on their own. They are not seen as being different from their owners. They are seen as being the same with their owner. It means that for such businesses, they cannot, it means that such businesses cannot sue other businesses or other people in their names, but in the name of their owners. Let me give you an example. If Alhaji Bala owns a business and he names the business ABC, let's assume the business sells, let's assume Alhaji Bala sells medicine in his shop or in his business, or he produces medicine. If NAFDAC finds out that the medicine sold by Alhaji Bala is fake or expired, then Alhaji Bala will be sued to court. Alhaji Bala will be sued to court and not the business. It is not ABC business that will be sued to court, but Alhaji Bala. So in the same vein, ABC business cannot sue other people or other businesses using its name, but the name of Alhaji Bala. So in summary, when a business has when a business is not a legal entity, rather, when a business is not a legal entity, it means that that business is not seen as a separate entity. That business is not separate from its owner. It means that business cannot sue in its name, but in the name of its owner. And at the same time, it means when the business is to be sued, it is the owner that will be sued. The next point there is that A sole proprietorship business has unlimited liability. What does this mean? What is a liability to start with? A liability is a burden. A liability is something that puts stress on you. So debt is an example of a liability. What do we now mean by saying a sole proprietorship business has unlimited liability? What this means is that the debts of the business, if that has to be paid, will be paid, even if it has to do with paying it with the personal assets of the owner. What I'm saying is, if the business goes bankrupt, if there is a debt to be paid in the business and the money in the business is not enough to take care of that, the owner of the business has to use his personal money to pay the business debts. So if the money in the business is not enough, the owner of the business has to find ways of settling the debt, even if it has to do with he selling his personal assets to pay it. That's the meaning of unlimited liability. That is, the business debt does not end in the asset of the business. It goes beyond that. If it's not settled with the resources, with the available resources in the business, then the owner has to find ways of settling it, even if it has to do with selling his personal belongings. The next feature of a sole proprietorship business is that the affairs of the business can be kept private. What this means is that any information about the business that the owner does not want to reveal, he can make it secret, because it is not mandatory on the sole proprietors to publish or publicize their statement of accounts, like some other forms of business organization where they have to publish their statement of accounts in magazines and newspapers. For the general public to see. It is mandatory on them. But for a sole proprietorship business, it is not mandatory on them to publish or publicize their account. So they may not, if the general public is definitely not entitled to knowing how much profit is made in a sole proprietorship business, or how much revenue is realized, or how much loss is made. The next feature of a sole proprietorship business is that the sole proprietor enjoys the profit of the business alone. He enjoys the profit, no matter the amount he realizes, he makes as profit. He enjoys it alone, and at the same time, when there is a loss in the business, he bears the loss alone. The next point is that the sole proprietorship business is easy to establish and also easy to manage. It's easy to be managed. It is easy to establish a sole proprietorship business, and a sole proprietorship business is also very easy to control, to run or operate. There are no rigorous formal procedures that has to be met. There are no rigorous formal procedures that must be met before a sole proprietorship business is established. Unlike some other forms of business organizations, they have to go through serious scrutiny, serious processes. They have to meet some requirements. They have to obtain some documents before they can establish the business or be allowed to operate. But for a sole proprietorship business, it does not need all those formal procedures for it to be established or for it to start operation. Another feature of sole proprietorship business is that it does not require huge capital for it to be established. Most of the sole proprietorship businesses, they usually start with a low capital. Yes, some of them, their startup capital may not even be more than 1,000 naira or 2,000 naira. So it means with a little amount of money, you can start your own business. It is usually very easy to start. Aside being easy to start and manage, it is also easy for it to be combined with other forms of businesses. So while you're running a particular business somewhere, you can as well run a sole proprietorship business alongside that particular business or other activities that you are doing. So let's briefly look at what we have treated before we end the class. We went back to defining a business organization as any legal activity that is aimed at providing goods and services and making profits. Okay, and then we looked at the various forms of business organization. Then I defined sole proprietorship business, and I emphasized that a sole proprietorship business is a business owned by just one person. I gave you numerous examples ranging from the hawkers in the street to the petty traders in the market, the roadside, along the streets, the kiosk owners, and so on, the shoemakers, the shoe menders, the sewing mistresses, the tailors, the bricklayers, the carpenters. They are also proprietors. So far they are owned by one person, you refer to them as a sole proprietor. And I also told you that irrespective of the number of people you find in the shop, probably they are apprentices to the owner of the business, or the owner of the business is paying them for some services. So far it is owned by just one person. It is only one person that provided the capital. It's only one person that provided the capital and bears the risk. So it is going to be referred to as a sole proprietorship business. We now looked at some of the features of sole proprietorship business, and the ones I'm going to emphasize some more. I told you that a sole proprietorship business is not a legal entity, and I explained that to you. I told you it is not separate from its owner. If it's going to be sued, it's not going to be sued in its name, but it's going to be sued in the name of its owner. So it is the owner that will be sued and not the business. In the same vein, it cannot sue other businesses too or other people in its name, but in the name of its owner. I also told you that a sole proprietorship business has unlimited liability, and I explained what that means to you. That a liability is a debt or a burden. So it means that the debt of the business will be paid irrespective of how the owner gets it or how the owner goes about it, even if it has to do with paying with his personal belongings. If the resources in the business is not enough to pay the debt, the owner of the business has to convert his personal assets or resources to pay the business debt. Then I also talked about the affairs of the business being made private. That is, it is not compulsory or it is not mandatory on the sole proprietor to publicize, to make known the amount is some information about his business, because it is not expected of him. The information about his business is not something that the general public must have access to. And I also talked about how easy it is for a sole proprietorship business to be established and managed. So that's what we have treated today, and that was going to be the end of the class. But before we go, I want you to go through the points, make your jottings, put down some notes on the topic, on the lessons, and I also want you to give me 2 more features of a sole proprietorship business explained. It must be explained. And aside that, you mention 3 examples of sole proprietorship business in your locality. So that's what you're going to do as your assignment. You mention 3 examples of a sole proprietorship business that you know that is in your environment, and you explain 2 features of a sole proprietorship business. That's going to be the end. That's going to be the end of the class. So we meet again for subsequent classes. Stay safe and be obedient as you've always been. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.